Hello everybody. So in this video we are going to talk about linear functions. So there's all kinds of functions, have all kinds of crazy graphs, but we're going to start by looking at functions that have straight line graphs. All right, and these are incredibly useful. I mean, the relationship between Fahrenheit and Celsius is a linear function. So there's one right there. If you want to measure the distance that you travel, traveling at a constant velocity, at a constant speed in your car, that's a linear function. So lots of linear functions out there. Let's take a look at some. Okay. So a linear function, as I just said, is a function with a linear graph. All right. A linear function has a linear graph. Okay, so that means that if I were to graph it, it would graph as a line, right? Now remember how functions work. How do I get the graph of a function? Well, for any x that I choose down here on the x-axis, the way the graph is formed is by determining the value of the function at that x. So I take a number for x, I plug it into my function, and I get a value back. What does that value represent in this picture? It represents the height of the graph. So if I go up to the graph and over to the y-axis, that's my f of x, right over there. And this is the point x comma f of x. Every point on the graph of a function has the form x comma f of x. But you know that points in the xy plane have the form x comma y. So what we're doing is we're drawing the graph where y equals f of x. So a lot of times that's what you'll see that written, draw the graph of y equals f of x. They're saying set the y coordinate equal to the value of the function. And this is what you get. For a linear function, it'll be a straight line. Of course, there's all kinds of functions. They don't always make straight lines. But for a linear function, that's what happens. Okay? So remember what we know about lines, right? Any non-vertical line, vertical lines are a little bit special. Any non-vertical line can be written as y equals mx plus b. So how can we write any linear function? Well, remember, we're letting y equal f of x. So any linear function can be written as f of x equals mx plus b. Any linear function has this form. Now, do they always look like that at the very beginning? Well, look at this. I could have a function. Let's try this one. This does not look like this. Does that mean it's not a linear function? Well, not necessarily. If I can get it into this form, then it's a linear function. So if I can just use algebra to manipulate this so that I can show that it's equivalent to this, then it is in fact a linear function. So let's try to do that. What would I do first? So actually this is a good moment for you to pause the video, simplify this expression, see what you can do. Okay? So let's count down. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so you had time to pause the video and simplify that expression. Let's compare our work. So the first thing I would have done here is distribute the 1/2. Right? The first thing you take care of are those parentheses. Let me just move my camera a little bit here, give myself more room. All right. Now what? Well, I'm all crooked. Okay. Whoa. All right. That looks better. Okay, so now what can we do? We can simplify these things. What's 1/2 times 4? It's 2. What's 1/2 times 8? It's 4. Nothing I can do with these guys. These aren't like terms. But now I have like terms. I have a 2x and a negative 3x. Like terms can be combined. That's negative 1x. And these are like terms. 4 plus 2 is 6. And lo and behold, look what I got. mx plus b. So even though it may not have looked like a linear function at the beginning, when we simplified it using some algebra, we realized that it was a linear function. So yeah, they don't always start like that, but if you can get them into that form, then it's a linear function. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to find some linear functions given just some basic information. You know that to write down a line, you only need a little bit of information, right? A line is determined by a point and a slope, right? So if you know the slope of the line and a point on the line, why is this thing so crooked? Okay. If you know the slope of a line and a point on the line, then you can write down the equation of the line, right? Okay, so we are going to find the linear function with slope negative 1/5 and which satisfies f of 0 equals 8. Okay? Well, what do we have here? They told us the slope. Well, that's fantastic. M equals negative 1/5. We got that right off the bat. Okay? Now, what does this tell us? Well, let's think about the graph. Okay? Let's just sketch a rough sketch of just loosely what the graph might look like. It's got a negative slope, so I know the line's decreasing, right? So let's just draw a line like this. Now remember, how do I get the graph from the function? Well, any point on the graph is of the form x comma f of x, right? Now look what they gave me. They gave me f of 0. So they're saying x is 0, right? So let's go over to where x is 0. Well, that corresponds to this point on the line. All right, so 0 comma, well, remember, every point is of the form x comma f of x, so that means that's 0 comma f of 0. Okay? But they said f of 0 was 8, right? So this is really the point 0 comma 8. So what they're giving me here is the y-intercept. When you see f of 0 equals something, they're telling you the y-intercept. And I can see my y-intercept is 0 comma 8, so that means that b is 8. Well, now we can write down the line, right? We said that every line has the expression mx plus b, right? So this is f of x equals mx plus b. There we go. The expression for that line. Now, that is one way to do it, thinking about where the y-intercept is. I want to show you another way to do that because the reason I want to do that is we're not always going to be given the y-intercept, right? We were fortunate that they gave us f of 0. What if they gave us something else? So let's talk about another way to get at the equation here without knowing maybe the intercept. Maybe we just do it some other way, okay? So suppose we didn't know yet that b was equal to 8, right? We hadn't yet figured that out. We do know m, all right? We were there, but we haven't yet figured out the b. What would I do? Well, here's another thing I could do without even using a picture, okay? Or I could have said this. I know that f of x is mx plus b. I just don't know what b is yet. Haven't found it yet. Okay. But I also know something else. They told us f of 0 equals 8. Okay? Let's just plug that stuff in here. F of 0 equals 8. Okay, but also when I compute f of 0, I know what that means. That means that everywhere I see an x up here, I'm going to replace it with a 0. Right? So it's also equal to negative 1/5 times 0 plus b. So let's take this equation here and let's simplify it. All right? So 8 equals, well, negative 1/5 times 0 is just 0. And 0 plus b is just b. So I've determined that b equals 8, which again brings me back to here. So I got b a different way. Right? And the great thing about this method here is that it'll work even if you're not dealing with a 0. Okay? So let's go ahead and use that method to do another problem. Okay? So the next problem is going to be find the linear function with slope 4 and which satisfies f of negative 2 equals 3. So we don't have a 0 this time. Okay, well, they told me the slope. Whoa, right off the bat, m equals 4. Great. And that means I know my function has the form f of x equals 4x plus b. Okay? Now they told me f of negative 2 equals 3. Okay. But I also know how to compute f of negative 2. To compute f of negative 2, when I have the expression for f, just means everywhere I see an x, replace it with negative 2. So this is also 4 times negative 2 plus b. And here is my equation that I can solve for b. Let's find b. So on your own, go ahead and simplify this, solve for b, and we'll check our work together, okay? So pause the video, 3, 2, 1. All right, welcome back. Let's check our work together. 3 equals 4 times negative 2, that's negative 8. Okay, it's not as easy as last time. I got to do a little bit more algebra. Add 8 to both sides. Oh, but it was only, what, 2 steps, right? 1, 2, and I got my b. So that was the only thing I didn't know, right? Now I know it. I know my function. F of x equals 4x plus 11. mx plus b. There's my function. Now it's good to check. You know, it's supposed to satisfy f of negative 2 equals 3. Go ahead and check that. Plug in a negative 2 for x. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Plus 11 is 3. That's just what it was supposed to equal. So it's always good to do that little check at the end, right? Just to make sure you didn't make a mistake somewhere. Okay. All right, let's do another one. Instead of giving you the slope, let's try something else. You know that you can define a line if you know 2 points, right? If I know it goes through here and I know it goes through here, well, there's only one line that can go through those 2 points, right? 2 points uniquely define a line, so we should be able to find the linear function given 2 points. All right, so find the linear function satisfying, let's say f of 4 equals negative 2, and f of negative 1 equals 5. Didn't give you the slope this time. Okay, but maybe we can still work with this. Well, let's see here. Remember that, thinking about the graph, right? The points are given by y equals f of x. They're the points x comma y, where the y coordinate is the value of the function. That's how you graph a function, right? So what that means is that when I wrote these down, notice that this is saying that when x is 4, f of x is -2. But y is f of x. So that's saying that when x is 4, y is -2. So we know a point on the line. I'm writing points because we're going to get another point from here. So what did I say? When x is 4, y is -2. So that's a point on the line. So on your own, get the point corresponding to this equation here. Okay? So pause the video. I'll count down from 3. 3, 2, 1. Okay, did you get it? Let's check our work. This is f of x. So we're saying when x is -1, f of x is y. So y is 5. So this is the point you should have gotten. So we have determined 2 points on the line. When you see the value of a function at different values of x, or any value of x, that's a point on the line. That's a point on the graph, even if it's not a linear graph. Any graph. If somebody gives you something like this, they're telling you a point on the graph. Okay, but let's use these. We know that given 2 points, we can find the line. What's the first step? The slope, right? So the slope. What's the formula for slope? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Let's call this my point x1, y1, and this my point x2, y2. I could have done it the other way around. It doesn't matter, right? Y2 minus y1, 5 minus -2, divided by x2 minus x1. See what we get here. 5 minus -2, well, that's 7. -1 minus 4, well, that's -5. We don't like to have negatives in the denominator, so we can always bring them out front. All right, so I'm going to write it as -7/5. That's my slope. Okay, well, now what do I do next? Well, look, we have the same information that we had in the previous problem. We have a slope, and we have something like this. In fact, we have 2 things like this. We could use either one of these. All right, so pick your favorite one. Maybe I'll use the first one. All right, f of 4 equals -2. So to do that, I'm gonna use the fact that y equals mx plus b. I just don't know what the b is yet, right? But I know f of 4 is -2. F of 4 is -2. But f of 4 is also what I get when I replace the x with a 4. So here's my equation that I can solve for b. So go ahead and solve that equation. I think you're going to get a fraction for b. All right? So pause the video. 3, 2, 1. All right. Did you get it? Let's check our work. -2 equals, well, what am I going to do here? Why don't I just multiply these? So 4 is the same as 4 over 1, and then I can just multiply straight across, right? 7 times 4 is, well, -7 times 4 is -28. 5 times 1 is 5. Let's add 28/5 to both sides. Okay. Well, these are going to cancel off. I just get a b. So whatever this is going to be my b. Now how am I going to add these? Well, I need a common denominator, right? So I'll multiply the numerator and denominator of this. Remember, Negative 2 is the same thing as negative 2 over 1. Multiply the numerator and denominator by 5. Right? What do you get? You get negative 10 over 5. So that's what I have. I have negative 10 over 5 plus 28 over 5. Add them. The denominators are the same now, so you just add the numerators. So we get 18 over 5 equals b. There's our b. Okay, so that's the only thing we needed to know here. So now I've got my function. F of x equals mx plus b. All right, so I think that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.